ولا تعجل بالقرآن من قبل أن يقضى إليك وحيه وقل رب زدني علما.
شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Tonight then, insha'Allah ta'ala, we're going to be looking at the topic regarding the etiquettes of a student of knowledge and the encouragement to seek knowledge. And we're going to do that by looking at a poem of the famous poem known as the Manzuma al-Ilbiri, Manzumatul Ilbiri, and he was Abu Ishaq Ibrahim ibn Mas'ud al-Ilbiri al-Andalusi. And he has this poem that he wrote in which he encourages the seeking of knowledge and in which he discusses the etiquettes of a student of knowledge and how a student of knowledge should use his time, should utilize his time. And they say many people believe that Abu Ishaq wrote this poem directing it to his son, that the advice he wrote in this poem was written for his son, because in the poem there is one line where he mentions Abu Bakr. He says, "Oh Abu Bakr," and some people believe that his son was called Abu Bakr and that he, Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri, was writing this poem in encouraging his son to seek knowledge. However, the scholars have mentioned that it is actually more likely that there is a different scenario to this poem. And they say the other scenario that is more likely, what is mentioned regarding it, is that Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri had a friend, a colleague by the name of Abu Bakr, and perhaps he knew him for a lengthy period of time. And then something occurred, and this individual, Abu Bakr, did some wrong towards Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri. This individual, Abu Bakr, did some wrong against Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri, said something wrong against him, oppressed him in some way, did some wrong against him, and they say perhaps it was in written form, that this Abu Bakr wrote something against Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri, and so instead of replying back to him, instead of defending himself and refuting this Abu Bakr, they say Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri wrote this poem as a response. To this Abu Bakr, reminding him of the etiquettes of the student of knowledge, reminding him of what he should be using his time for, reminding him how the student of knowledge utilizes his time, and reminding him of what he should not be doing. So he reminded him, gave him a nasiha. After that individual had written something against him, he replied back with this nasiha in this poem, reminding this individual, Abu Bakr, of the etiquettes of a student of knowledge and how a student of knowledge should behave and how he should conduct himself and what he should use his time upon, he gave him a nasiha in reply. So in this poem then, by Abu Ishaq al-Albiri al-Andalusi, and he was known for his poetry. He was known for his poetry, Abu Ishaq al-Albiri, and he was known to be a faqih. He mentions in this poem then, تفت فؤادك الأيام فتى وتنحت جسمك الساعات نحتا, that the days slowly chip away at you, meaning that as time goes by, then a person weakens. As you get older and older, then your level of energy begins to go lower, and your level of activity begins to go lower. Your level of energy, activity, physical ability, it begins to decline when somebody becomes older in age. And so he mentions here, tafuttu, that it breaks you down. Tafuttu meaning that it breaks you down. Tafuttu fu'adaka al-ayyamu fatta, that the days, they slowly break you down. You slowly become weaker as time goes by. And this is something which is evidenced. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min dha'fin thumma ja'ala min ba'di dha'fin quwwa thumma ja'ala min ba'di quwwatin dha'fa wa shayba. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you in weakness, from weakness to begin with as a child, and then He made in you after that weakness strength. But then after that strength comes once again the weakness and the old age. And that is what he is referring to here. That when you become elderly in age, your energy, your activity, your physical ability, it decreases. It decreases. So that straight away in the opening line is a reminder to the person, that your time is limited, and the more that time goes by and the elder you become in age, the less energy you'll have, the less physical ability you'll have, the less activity you'll have. So do not waste what you have right now. Do not waste what you have right now from energy, ability, activity. Do not waste that now, because the more the days go by, the more your opportunity and your time is disappearing from you, and the weaker you'll become, the older you become in age to the later age. And then he mentions, وَتَنْحِتُ جِسْمَكَ السَّاعَاتُ نَحْتًا, that your body physically also begins to become weaker as you grow older. وَتَدْعُوكَ الْمَنُونُ دُعَاءَ صِدْقٍ أَلَا يَا صَاحِ أَنْتَ أُرِيدُ أَنْتَ. And you are being called. Death is calling you, saying, it is you that I want. Meaning your appointed time is coming closer and closer. Your time to death is coming closer and closer. He says, وَتَدْعُوكَ الْمَنُونُ دُعَاءَ الصِّدْقِ. That death, your appointed time, is calling upon you with a call of truth. Death will not be delayed from you from your appointed time. When that time comes, then it comes. And so death is calling upon you. with a call of truthfulness. Anta uridu anta. You are the one that I want, you. Meaning your time of death, when it comes, then death will come for you, not anybody else. At your time, it is you that death will come for. So he says, the days go by and you become old in age and weakness overcomes you and death is calling upon you. But still, أراك تحب عرسا ذات خدر. He says, I see that you love عرسا ذات خدر. It means the virgin woman. And what he means by that is the world. That I see you chasing after the world, the bliss of the world, the luxuries of the world. I see you chasing and loving those affairs. However, despite you chasing and loving those affairs, أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا. He says the intelligent ones have divorced her. Meaning the intelligent people, they have divorced the luxuries of this world. They have divorced chasing after this world, a final divorce. There is no coming back to her. That is the intelligent one. The intelligent one has divorced himself from this world, meaning that he is not chasing after this world, not chasing after the luxuries of this world, after the glitter and the bliss and the beauties of this world, only taking from it what is required and moving along. Because we are only here as travelers. كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. Be in this world as though you are a stranger or a traveler. So he says, أراك تحب عرسا ذات خدر أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا. I see that you love, the meaning of which is this world and the luxuries of it. But the intelligent ones have divorced themselves from it. Meaning, what are you doing still attached to it? Still chasing after it? And the intelligent ones have divorced it and they are preoccupied with affairs of greater importance. They are preoccupied with affairs of their religion. They are preoccupied with affairs of knowledge. And yet you are preoccupied with the affairs of the world. You can see right from the beginning of the poem how he is advising him, your time is running out. The older you get, the weaker you become in old age. And death is calling out to you. And yet still I see you attached to the world and preoccupied with the world. Yet the intelligent ones have divorced themselves from the world, meaning they are using their time in knowledge, in their religion, and you are attached and using your time in the worldly affairs. This is a very important piece of advice. The student of knowledge needs to recognize how to utilize their time and not to become preoccupied with the affairs of the world. The affairs of the world, they will continue. And what has occurred before, then it occurs now and it will occur in the future. Evils that occurred before, evils are occurring now and evils will occur in the future. The events of the world are ongoing. The events of the world are ongoing. Ongoing, and they occur and they continue to occur. If a person becomes engrossed in the events of the world and the chasing after the world, then when are you going to focus on your studying and your knowledge? When are you going to focus on your religion and learning? So it's very important for a student of knowledge to recognize what his priorities are. He then goes on to say, تنام الدهر ويحك في غطيط بها حتى إذا مت انتبهت. That you spend your time in sleep, in negligence, sleeping away in negligence without any worry, any concern, and you are only going to become aware when death suddenly comes to you. Now you sleep, wasting away this world in your deep sleep, snoring away, and you will only come to realize and wake up when death wakes you up. Otherwise, right now, he says, تَنَامُ الدَّهْرَ وَيْحَكَ فِي غَطِيٍ. You are sleeping away all of your time, all of your life in your snoring, in your deep sleep, wasting all of this time, and you're only going to be woken up when death comes and wakes you up. All of this opening section of the poem, he's highlighting the importance of time. Highlighting the importance of time for the student of knowledge. Time is short, death is coming. It is important for a student of knowledge to utilize the time that he has. So he says, فَكَمْ ذَا أَنْتَ مَخْدُوعٌ وَحَتَّى مَتَى لَا تَرْعَوِ عَنْهَا وَحَتَّى. He says, and how much you are engrossed in this, wasting your time in negligence, how much you are engrossed in that, how much you have been deceived by that, how much you have become preoccupied by that, wasting your time in affairs that bring you no good. How much you have become deceived and preoccupied in that negligence of yours that you're not waking up from. And that's why he mentions various examples can be mentioned. Ali ibn Abi Talib, it is mentioned in his biography in Hilyatul Awliya that he would say, or he mentioned regarding the world, he said, "O dunya," talking to the world, "Ghurri ghayri," go and deceive other than me. Ali ibn Abi Talib, that he would say to this world, addressing this world, go and deceive others besides me, leave me alone. Ya dunya ghurri ghayri, talking to this world, addressing this world, go and take up somebody else, leave me alone. Because he recognized and knew where the importance of his time was. And so you have the narration of Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, where he mentioned, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ. That if you make it to the evening, then do not wait around till the morning. Do not say that you will do such and such an action in the morning. Do not say that you will do your revision, your memorization, your seeking of knowledge, your act of worship later in the morning. Rather, now you have the opportunity in the evening, you've made it to the evening alive, then utilize the opportunity and do not delay and say in the morning, inshallah. And if you make it to the morning, then do not delay saying, inshallah, in the evening I'll do it. You do not know if you will make it to that next evening. And if you do, you do not know if you will make it to the next morning. So do not delay. When the opportunity comes for the seeking of that knowledge, then it must be done. Because anybody who is not taking that opportunity and is wasting their time, then that person is in ghafla. He is in negligence. And that is why Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned in Madarij al-Salikin, فَالِاسْتِقَامَةُ وَالتَّوْبَةُ يُعَدُّ يَقِظَةً وَمَا قَبْلَهَا يُعَدُّ نَوْمًا. In reference to what Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri mentioned here, وَيْحَكَ تَنَامُ الدَّهْرِ, that you are in sleep. You are sleeping You are sleeping the whole of this world. تَنَامُ الدَّهْرَ وَيْحَكَ فِي غَطِيثٍ. And the meaning of that is that you are in negligence. You are in a state whereby you are not upon uprightness. You are in a state where you are not seeking forgiveness for your affairs. Ibn Qayyim said, being upright, al-istiqamatu wa-tawbatu yu'addu yaqadatan. Being upright and seeking forgiveness and tawbah for your wrongs, when you're in that state, you are awake. You're not in negligence now then. If you're upright and you're seeking forgiveness from Allah and you are connected with your dua and your adhkar, then you're not asleep, you're awake now. But prior to that, when you are not upright and you are not seeking forgiveness or asking for repentance, then that is considered you being in a state of sleep. So do not think that the meaning of this is physically sleeping only. When he says here that you're sleeping your world away, not necessarily only physically sleeping, but when a person is not upright, is not practicing the religion, is not seeking knowledge, then that person is asleep. Even if he's awake and walking around, he is actually asleep. You are only awake when you realize what you're supposed to be doing with your life and you begin seeking that knowledge and you become upright upon the religion of Allah and you seek forgiveness for your wrongs and your shortcomings. Now you're awake when you're doing those things. When you're not doing those things, then you are in reality asleep, walking around in this world asleep, not upon uprightness, not seeking forgiveness, not seeking knowledge. And then he goes on to mention to him, أبا بكر دعوتك لو أجبت إلى ما فيه حظك لو عقلت. He says, Oh Abu Bakr, I am calling you, I am inviting you, I am advising you to that which your benefit is in. I'm advising you and calling you to that which, if you accept my advice and what I'm calling you to, then you will have your share of goodness. Oh Abu Bakr, I am calling you, دعوتك لو أجبت. I'm calling you, inviting you, advising you, if only you would answer to that and you would accept what I'm telling you. إلى ما فيه حظك لو عقلت. To that which your share of goodness is within, if only you would realize that. I'm calling you to goodness, he's telling him. To that which is goodness for you, if only you would realize. ولو عقلت إلى علم تكون به إماما إن نهيت وإن أمرت أو مطاعا إن نهيت وإن أمرت. That I am calling you to that which is goodness for you, to that which you will become an imam. إلى علم تكون به إماما مطاعا إن نهيت وإن أمرت. I'm calling you to seek this knowledge, that by means of it you would become an imam, that the people listen to when you tell them to do this and not to do that. The scholars, they mention the purpose of that is to highlight not that you are seeking knowledge to become an imam so people listen to you, but rather that is the virtue that Allah gives to the one who seeks knowledge and learns, that Allah makes him beloved amongst the people, and that the people, they listen to him, and that the people, they take from him. And that is what you see from the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, the scholars who are made beloved amongst the people, and the people love them and the people take from them. The people listen to them when they explain that this is right and this is wrong. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. The people of remembrance, the people of knowledge. So that is a virtue of the one who seeks knowledge, that Allah raises him. So He tells him, I'm calling you to that which, the knowledge which, if you seek it and use your time in it, then from the virtue of Allah, one of the virtues Allah gives you is that you are raised by that knowledge. Allah gives you the virtue of being raised by that knowledge, and that is great goodness for you within that knowledge. And there are many examples of that. There is the example of Ibn Umar, or Umar ibn al-Khattab. When Umar ibn al-Khattab had appointed Nafi' in charge of Mecca. When Umar ibn al-Khattab was Amir al-Mu'mineen and he was in Medina, he put Nafi' in charge of Mecca as the deputy in Mecca. On one occasion, Nafi' came from Mecca to Medina to visit Umar ibn al-Khattab, the Amir al-Mu'mineen. So when he came, Umar ibn al-Khattab said to him, who have you left in charge in Mecca? Who is temporarily in charge whilst you have come here? So he said, Ibn Abza. He said, I left in charge Ibn Abza. Yanubu anni Ibn Abza. Umar ibn al-Khattab said to him, Waman Ibn Abza? He said, who is Ibn Abza that you have left in charge? He said, Min Mawalina, that he is one of our former slaves, and he left him in charge of Mecca whilst he goes. So Umar ibn al-Khattab said to Nafi', you left a Mawla in charge of Mecca? So Nafi' said to him, this particular individual, Ibn Abza, he is alim, an alim of the ahkam in the Quran, of the ahkam al-mawarith. He's an alim in fiqh, an alim in understanding the Quran. And so the people, they respect him and they listen to him. So Umar ibn Khattab said, لقد سمعت قول نبيك صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله يرفع بهذا الكتاب أقواما ويضع به الآخرين. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises people by virtue of this book. Just like Ibn Abza was a slave of the people in Mecca previously, he was now left in charge temporarily whilst Nafi' was gone, because of the knowledge that he had, because of his knowledge of the Quran, his memorization of the Quran, his understanding of the Quran. That knowledge is what raised him from being a former slave to being left in charge of Mecca. There is another example they mention of Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Awqas. This individual who was handicapped, physically deformed. His body was physically deformed. They say in his biography his shoulders were protruding. His shoulders were sticking out at the front, and that his neck was nothing. That his head was in his chest. He had no neck and his shoulders were sticking out. His body was physically not straight. And so when he was a child, all the other people, they used to laugh at him. All the other kids used to laugh at him because he was physically disabled, as we say. So then it's mentioned in his biography, his mother said to him, whenever you go anywhere and you sit with the people, they will always make jokes about you. فَعَلَيْكَ بِالْعِلْمِ. So upon you is to seek knowledge. Upon you is to seek knowledge. And so Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Awqas, He says, the words of my mother, they fell into my heart. So he began seeking knowledge. طلب العلم, began seeking knowledge of the religion until years and years later, he became Qadi Mecca. He became the judge of Mecca. And he was still physically disabled, grown up now, but he's still physically disabled. But he became the judge. And they say, when the people used to go to the mahkamah, they used to go to the courtroom and he was the judge, they would go in shaking in front of him. Because they knew the level of knowledge he has. They knew his status. They knew his ability and strength. That they could not go in there and try and trick him or deceive him or anything. Going into the courtroom to face him, they would be shaking. And years earlier, maybe those same people with him, when they were children, they were laughing at him. Maybe those same people, when they were younger, they were making jokes of him because of his disability. And now years later, from the knowledge that he gained, Allah by his virtue raised him in status and rank, even though the physical disability was still there, raised him such that the people are shaking in front of him. This is the virtue of knowledge, and that's what he means here. إلى علم تكون به إماما مطاعا إن نهيت وإن أمرت. That I am calling you to seeking this knowledge, that by means of it you'll become an imam that is obeyed if you command and you prohibit, meaning that Allah through that virtue raises you such that you become beloved amongst the people and that they listen to you and they accept from you. And then he says to him, وَيَجْلُو مَا بِعَيْنِكَ مِنْ غِشَاهَا وَيَهْدِيكَ الطَّرِيقَ إِذَا ضَلَلْتَ. That through this, the covering upon your eye will be removed. The covering that is upon your eyes will be removed. And that meaning that your ignorance, it is removed with this knowledge. Your ignorance, your jahl, which is the covering upon your eyes, that jahl is removed from you by this knowledge that you seek. Knowledge gives you sight. Knowledge, this ilm, it gives you understanding. It gives you basirah. You are no longer blinded by ignorance. You can now see with this knowledge. So he says to him, يَجْلُو مَا بِعَيْنِكَ مِنْ غِشَاهَا, that it will make clear what is upon your eyes from the covering, that will become clear now to you, and you'll be able to see. وَيَهْدِيكَ الطَّرِيقَ إِذَا ضَلَلْتَ, and this knowledge will guide you back to the straight path if you become astray. This knowledge will bring you back to the straight path if you are led astray. وَتَحْمِلُ مِنْهُ فِي نَادِيكَ تَاجًا وَيَكْسُوكَ الْجَمَالَ إِذَا عَرِيتَ. وَفِي نَادِيكَ يعني في مجالسك, that you carry this with you. You will carry this with you in all of your gatherings. This knowledge is then with you. Once you gain that knowledge and you go upon that path of knowledge, then it is with you wherever you go. Whatever gathering you're in, wherever you are sitting, whoever you are amongst, that knowledge is with you. And that's why they say, Al-ilmu ma hawa sadr. Knowledge in reality is what the chest holds. What you know, that is the knowledge. Otherwise, anybody can Google, anybody can go and read from the book and copy it out. That isn't the reality of knowledge. Anybody can sit there and Google and go to Maktaba Shamila and copy this and copy that and see the statements of scholars here, see the statements of scholars there. Copy and make a book. That doesn't make you a scholar. That doesn't make you somebody knowledgeable. Clicking buttons and copying and pasting doesn't make you knowledgeable. The reality of knowledge, al-ilmu ma hawa sadr. Knowledge is what is held in the hearts. And that's why the scholars, they used to say, it's not about al-maktaba al-shamila, the CD where you can type in and everything comes up. You need to research. You need to look into the books. You need to study. Do the bahth. Go and look for the work. Go and look for the answers. That's what makes a student of knowledge. As for simply Googling these days, that doesn't make you a student of knowledge. That doesn't make you somebody knowledgeable. Anybody with skill can Google and make a book. Write a whole book, 1,000 pages, and you've done nothing except copy and paste here, there, everywhere. That doesn't make you knowledgeable. Knowledge is what is in the hearts, what is held and memorized and understood. And that's why they say there used to be two scholars. They mention this example. There used to be two scholars in the past. Whenever they used to debate, one of them would always win during the daytime and the other one would always win at nighttime. If they ever debated during the daytime, one of them would always win. And if they ever debated at nighttime, the other one would always win. The one who would always win in the daytime was the one who had access to all of his books, these days Google. Because when they debated during the daytime, he could get all of his references, he could get all of his books. Light in the daytime, he could get everything and refute the other one. Because everything is there, encyclopedias, books, volumes, he's got them all there. Quoting this, quoting that, quoting here. So he would always win the argument. But when it came to the night time, and now it's dark, and now you're trying to use your lantern to read the books and the pages and you can't see. He couldn't find his references, he couldn't find his quotes, he couldn't find anything. So the other one would always win because he had everything memorized. He had everything in his heart. He had the understanding in his heart, had the knowledge, had the comprehension. So he could always refute him at night. He would be able to explain everything. The other one couldn't. The other one relied upon his references and books and quotes. These days, as we say, his Google. That the one who has access to Google wins the argument now. But when the internet goes down, the other one will always win. Because the other one is the one who's memorized and understood. The other one is the one upon the methodology of the Talib al-Ilm. As for this methodology of Google, that will not make you a student of knowledge. It will not make you a student of knowledge at all. It requires memorization. It requires studying, putting time in effort, reading books, memorizing texts, quotes, a hadith. That's what makes a talib al-ilm. So he says to him that this knowledge will make that clarity for you and it will be with you wherever you go, in your heart. وَيَكْسُوكَ الْجَمَالَ إِذَا عَرِيتَ. And it, this knowledge, will give you garments of beauty even if you become naked. Meaning that the knowledge will always surround you with that beauty. Knowledge will always surround you with that beauty. It will always cover you with that beauty. And you'll never be left naked. You'll never be left exposed. The one upon knowledge is upon beauty. ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا ويبقى ذكره لك إن ذهبت. He says to him, the benefit of this knowledge, it will be with you when you're alive. In this world now, this knowledge will benefit you. This knowledge will aid you. This knowledge will be of great assistance to you during this world as long as you are alive. And when you die, then you will be remembered with good. Because by virtue of that knowledge that you had, by virtue of that knowledge that you had and your action upon that knowledge and your teaching of that knowledge, then even after you die, you will be remembered with goodness. So he mentions ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا ويبقى ذكره لك إن ذهبت يعني المت, that the good remembrance will remain for you even after you die. And this is along the lines of the narration where it mentions إذا مات العبد انقطع عنه عمله إلا من ثلاث. When a servant dies, all of his actions are cut off except three things. Those three things: صدقة جارية, the ongoing charity, وعلم ينتفع به, and knowledge that he leaves behind and benefit is continuously sought from it, وولد صالح يدعو له, and a righteous child who makes dua for him after his death. So the second point there, علم ينتفع به, a person leaves behind knowledge after his death, continues to benefit from that, because the people continue to benefit from that knowledge he left behind, so he continues to gain reward from that. So he says to him وتحمل من نعم ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا ويبقى لك ذكره أو ذكره لك إن ذهبت. هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من أردت. That it is a sharp sword that does not miss its target. It is a sharp sword that does not miss its target. Meaning, when you have knowledge, then you know what that straight path is. You know what the truth is. You have now a sharp sword. And that sharp sword does not miss its target. The Quran and the Sunnah, the knowledge, the evidences, the clear understanding, when you have that upon an affair, then you don't go astray. You now know where that clear truth is, and your sword does not miss its target, meaning also the deviations, your sword strikes them. You have knowledge of the truth, and so your sword is a sharp one with that knowledge, which does not miss its targets from the deviations. You can strike the deviations when they come. But a person who doesn't have this sharp sword, doesn't have this knowledge, the deviations come, he has nothing to strike those deviations down with. Those deviations come and they overwhelm him. He has no sword, he has no sharp sword to strike down those deviations. But he says to him here, هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من أردت. That it is the sharp sword that does not miss its target for the one that you aim for. Meaning, when the deviants come and the deviation comes, with that knowledge, you can strike the deviations out. That is for the one who has knowledge, for the one who has understanding, for the one who has ability. وَكَنْزٌ لَا تَخَافُ عَلَيْهِ لِلصَّاعِ. And this knowledge, it is a treasure that you do not have to fear any thieves upon. Knowledge is a treasure, but normally when you have a treasure, when you have gold, or you have money in the saving somewhere, you have gold, you have money, you have property, you have a car, those things you worry about. Maybe somebody comes and destroys your house or robs your house. Maybe somebody comes and robs your gold. Maybe somebody comes and robs something else from you. You fear upon the treasures that you have. But he says this knowledge is a treasure. You don't have to worry about any thief ever taking it. This treasure cannot be stolen, because this treasure is in your heart. This treasure is the knowledge that you carry. Nobody can come and steal that from you. Nobody can come and steal the treasure of knowledge from you. They can steal the treasures of gold and silver and wealth and homes. They can come and rob those things from you. But nobody can rob the knowledge from you. It is a treasure that you don't have to worry about, he says. كنز لا تخاف عليه للصا. It is a treasure that you do not have to fear any thief upon. خفيف الحمل يوجد حيث كنت. Another point regarding this treasure of knowledge. Normally other treasures can be heavy. If somebody now owns bullions of gold, he has gold bars that he owns, that's heavy. You own 10 bars of gold, you're not going to pick them up very easily to carry them around. So normally treasures are heavy. They need a big safe to lock them inside, and when you have to transport that safe, the big safe, it's heavy, difficult, many men. Normally treasures are heavy goods. But this knowledge, he tells you, is a treasure that is very light. It is a treasure that is very light. It's not like gold bars that you're carrying around, even cash. You have 5,000 pounds in cash, it fills up your pocket. Heavy. But this knowledge, it is not a treasure that is heavy. It is a treasure that is very light. Because again, it's there in your heart. It is there from what you carry, the knowledge that you have and the understanding that you have. A very light treasure to carry around, and it is found يوجد حيث كنت. You can have access to this treasure wherever you are. Other treasures, if you've got your gold in a bank or you've got it in a safe locked away somewhere, physical places, access may not be that easy. You're away somewhere else, you have to go back to pick it up. Access is difficult to your treasures. You own a property, a £1 million home, but you go traveling somewhere, now you want access to it, it's difficult. You have to travel all the way back to get access to it. But this knowledge, it is a treasure. It is a treasure where you have access all the time to it, wherever you are, because it's there once again. The knowledge is there, what you carry, and so you have access to it wherever you are. يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه وينقص إن به كفا شددت. Another difference between the knowledge, the treasure of knowledge, and other treasures. Other treasures, when you give some parts of them away, they decrease, diminish. You have £1 million and you want to gift somebody part of your treasure. You want to gift them £100,000. Once you gift them that 100,000, now you've only got 900,000 left. You haven't got $1 million anymore. So when you gift your normal treasures, then it means what you have left is less. You have 10 properties, you want to gift somebody one of them. Now you've only got 9 left. So normally your other treasures, when you give from them to people, then they decrease. But this treasure, when you gift it to people, it actually increases for you. Because when you gift knowledge to people, meaning when you teach people, then you yourself are benefiting and you're memorizing and you're revising, and that knowledge is becoming stronger for yourself too. When you're teaching somebody else, so you're giving them that knowledge you have, it is also increasing your own knowledge. Because you, by teaching, become stronger in that knowledge. That is well known. By teaching that knowledge, then you become stronger in that knowledge yourself. So by giving from this treasure of knowledge you have, it's not decreasing your treasure, it's increasing it for yourself. So that is another difference he highlights between the treasures of the world and the treasure of this knowledge. فَلَوْ قَدْ ذُقْتَ مِنْ حَلْوَاهُ طَعْمًا لَآثَرْتَ التَّعَلُّمَ وَاجْتَهَدْتَ. He says, so if you were to taste the sweetness of this knowledge, then you would certainly give it precedence over all else. You would certainly start seeking the knowledge and learning and striving if only you tasted the sweetness of this knowledge. If you tasted the sweetness of this knowledge, you would certainly give it precedence over all else, and you would strive and learn. فَلَوْ قَدْ ذُقْتَ مِنْ حَلْوَاهُ طَعْمًا لَآثَرْتَ التَّعَلُّمَ وَاجْتَهَدْتَ وَلَمْ يَشْغَلْكَ عَنْهُ هَوًى مُطَاعٌ وَلَا دُنْيَا بِزُخْرُفِهَا فُتِنْتَ. And if you tasted the sweetness of this knowledge, then you would not become preoccupied by any other desire. Your other desires and what your soul is after, that would no longer be a priority for you. You would be able to crush those other desires from the sweetness of this knowledge that you've experienced and your desire for more of it. You would be able to crush and get rid of all other preoccupations. So they wouldn't be able to distract you or digress you away, nor would this world with all of its luxuries be able to make a fitna for you. The world with all of its luxuries, the wealth and the money and all of those affairs, they would not drag you away and take you away from your focus once you realize the sweetness of this knowledge. ولا ألهاك عنه أنيق روض ولا خدر بزينتها كلفتا فقوت الروح أرواح المعاني وليس بأن طعمت ولا شربتا فواظبه وخذ بالجد فيه فإن أعطاكه الله انتفعتا وإن أعطيت فيه طويل باع وقال الناس إنك قد علمت فلا تأمن سؤال الله عنه بتوبيخ علمت فهل عملت. So he says then, do not allow any distractions to overcome you. Do not allow the fitan, the different trials and tribulations of the world to distract you away from this knowledge. فَقُوتُ الرُّوحِ أَرْوَاحُ الْمَعَانِ وَلَيْسَ بِأَنْ طَعِمْتَ وَلَا شَرِبْتَ. The reality of the nutrition for your soul, it is this knowledge, not physical food and drink. The reality of nutrition for your soul, it is not food and drink, but it is this knowledge. فَوَاظِبْهُ وَخُذْ بِالْجِدِّ فِيهِ. So be consistent in that knowledge and strive with real effort within it. فَإِنْ أَعْطَاكَهُ اللَّهُ انْتَفَعْتَ. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you this knowledge, then you will certainly benefit from it. You will certainly be in a position of having great benefit achieved from that knowledge you've gained. وَإِنْ أُعْطِيتَ فِيهِ. Now he says, وَإِنْ أُعْطِيتَ فِيهِ طَوِيلَ بَاعٍ. And if you do manage then to end up getting quite a bit of knowledge, if you do end up doing all of that and gaining knowledge and ending up with some level of knowledge, وَقَالَ النَّاسُ إِنَّكَ قَدْ عَلِمْتَ. And the people begin to say, MashaAllah, this individual, he has certainly learnt, he is learned. The people, they recognize you now for your knowledge. If you get to that, then he says, فَلَا تَأْمَنْ سُؤَالَ اللَّهِ عَنْهُ. If you get to that level, he says then, do not feel safe and secure. Do not think that you have now crossed all boundaries and you're safe and secure. Do not feel safe and secure from Allah questioning you upon this knowledge that you were given and saying to you, عَلِمْتَ فَهَلْ عَمِلْتَ. So you had the knowledge. Did you act upon the knowledge? So if you gain the knowledge and people begin to say he is a learned man with knowledge, then do not feel safe now and secure now that you've made it. Do not feel safe and secure from the questioning of Allah. You had knowledge. So what did you do? Did you act upon your knowledge? Because indeed the thamaratul ilm is al-amal. The fruits of knowledge are the action upon the knowledge. فرأس العلم تقوى الله حقا وليس بأن يقال لقد رأست. The reality of knowledge, the head of knowledge, the objective in knowledge is the taqwa of Allah. That's what you want to achieve from knowledge. Taqwa, fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fulfilling the commandments and staying away from the prohibitions. That is the head of knowledge. That's what you want to achieve, the taqwa of Allah. Which then obviously means the action and obedience to Allah. وَلَيْسَ بِأَنْ يُقَالَ لَقَدْ رَأَسْتَ. And it is not, the seeking of knowledge is not for the purpose of getting leadership. It is not so that the people may say that, MashaAllah, look at where he's reached and look at the level he's got. It is not for leadership, but rather the knowledge is for the taqwa that you achieve. وَأَفْضَلُ ثَوْبِكَ الْإِحْسَانُ لَكِنْ نَرَى ثَوْبَ الْإِسَاءَةِ قَدْ لَبِسْتَ. So you remember the background to this poem, some of the scholars have highlighted, it was actually because this person Abu Bakr had written something incorrect and wrong against his brother Abu Ishaq al-Albiri. Not blood brother, just his brother in Islam. So Abu Bakr had written something wrong against this Abu Ishaq al-Albiri. So Abu Ishaq al-Albiri was giving him an admonition, reminding him, giving nasiha to him. So now he says to him, وَأَفْضَلُ ثَوْبِكَ الْإِحْسَانُ. Abu Ishaq al-Albiri, the poet, writing the poem, says to this Abu Bakr, who the scholars they say may have been an old colleague of his, who has wronged him, that the best of your character, the best of what you are, is when you're upon righteousness. Abu Ishaq is reminding this Abu Bakr, you are at your best when you're upon ihsan, when you're upon righteousness and goodness, that is the best of you. But then he said, لَكِنْ نَرَى. But we see right now, ثَوْبَ الْإِسَاءَةِ قَدْ لَبِسْتَ. That currently you are wearing the garment of bad. That you're behaving in a manner that is bad. You're behaving in a manner that is incorrect towards your brother. You're doing something that is not befitting, not suitable, not from the etiquettes of a talib al-ilm. We see that you are currently wearing a garment of bad behavior. And that is not the best of you. The best of you is when you're upon righteousness. He's reminding him. That is where we see the best from you. When you're upon ihsan and goodness and righteousness. But now we see currently you are wearing this garment of badness. That you're behaving in this way that is not good and suitable or appropriate. إِذَا مَا لَمْ يُفِدْكَ الْعِلْمُ خَيْرًا فَخَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ أَنْ لَوْ قَدْ جَهِلْتَ. So then Abu Ishaq says to this Abu Bakr who had oppressed Abu Ishaq, he says, look, if the knowledge you've got doesn't benefit you, you don't behave properly with the knowledge you've got, you don't behave with the etiquettes of the student of knowledge with the knowledge you've got, then it's better for you to remain ignorant. It would have been better for you not to have gained that knowledge. Meaning because now that you've got the knowledge, it is an evidence upon you. It is an evidence upon you. So you now behaving in this bad way and performing these actions and statements that have no wisdom in them, no etiquette in them, the wrong that you're doing, then what have you benefited from the knowledge that you've got, that you're behaving in this way? Better for you in that case if you never had the knowledge, because then at least it wouldn't have been an evidence against you. Now it is an evidence against you that you're behaving in this bad way and you have the knowledge, meaning you're not acting upon this knowledge that you have. وَإِنْ أَلْقَاكَ فَهْمُكَ فِي مَهَاوٍ فَلَيْتَكَ ثُمَّ لَيْتَكَ مَا فَهِمْتَ. And if your knowledge ends up dropping you into bad affairs, then if only you never had that knowledge in the first place. If your knowledge leads you to something where you are dropping yourself into bad affairs, then if only you never had the knowledge in the first place. And these are important pieces of advice. That a student of knowledge, if by way of something that he knows, ends up doing something with no wisdom in it, ends up behaving towards another with no etiquette in it, ends up behaving in a manner that is not suitable or befitting of the knowledge that he has, that's what he's telling this Abu Bakr right now. That if you have this knowledge, then all of this behavior of yours is completely unsuitable. It is not befitting of you that you should be doing this and behaving in this way. This knowledge is not befitting of you that you behave in this way. If that's what you're going to do and your knowledge is going to lead you to this type of action and this type of behavior, then better you never had the knowledge in the first place. ستجني من ثمار العجز جهلا وتصغر في العيون إذا كبرتها. That if this is what you do, you will become belittled in the eyes of the people. If this is what you do upon knowledge that you have, and you behave in this bad way to your brother, he's talking about this affair between Abu Bakr and the poet Abu Ishaq, that if this is how you behave and this is what you do, then you're only going to end up belittled in the eyes of the people. And that is something witnessed and known. If a person does wrong to another, behaves in a method or a behavior or an etiquette to another that is wrong, then that person, if he doesn't repent from that or seek forgiveness from that, retract from that, change that behavior, then he is going to be belittled in the eyes of the people. The people are going to look at him in lower regard. That is known. That is how it is amongst the people, between the people. They will look at him with a lower regard. That he behaved in such a bad way towards somebody, he wronged somebody, he had no etiquette with somebody. People are going to look at you with a lowered gaze. And that's what he tells him. You will become small in the eyes of the people. تَصْغُرُ فِي الْعُيُونِ إِذَا كَبِرْتَ. That even if you get older, you will become smaller in the eyes of the people. You become older, and he mentions that on purpose. Because when somebody becomes older, you expect that they should have more respect from the people. You become older, it is expected that you should have more respect from the people and from those who are younger. But if you behave in a way that is not upon the etiquettes of knowledge, then even if you become older in age, you end up becoming, he says, smaller in the eyes of the people. So it's very important to understand the etiquettes of a talib al-ilm and how he behaves and how he conducts himself and how to implement and practice the knowledge he's gained. وَتُفْقَدُ إِن جَهِلْتَ وَأَنْتَ بَاقٍ. And if you don't gain knowledge and you don't bother with knowledge, then you will be invisible even if you are present. Meaning nobody will even have any concern for you, any recognition of you. You could be there in a gathering amongst the students and nobody even looks at you because you are a person who doesn't even study, who doesn't even gain knowledge, who is upon ignorance. So you are there, but it's as though you're invisible because you got nothing of knowledge. So he says, if you don't gain this knowledge, you could be there physically, but you'll be invisible to the people. But on the other hand, وَتُوجَدُ إِنْ عَلِمْتَ وَلَوْ فُقِدْتَ. But on the opposite side, you will be present if you gain knowledge, even if you are actually physically not there. Meaning, even after you die and you're not there, you will still be remembered amongst the people. Because by virtue of that knowledge you had. And that is shown and it is seen with the examples of the ulama. To this day, we talk about Al-Imam Ahmad. To this day, we talk about Al-Imam Shafi'i, Al-Imam Malik. To To this day we talk about Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim. To this day we talk about Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. To this day we talk about Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh al-Uthaymeen, Sheikh al-Albani. We talk about them to this day. They are gone, but they are still here in our remembrance. Such is the virtue of knowledge, that if you have no knowledge, even when you're there, you're invisible. But if you have knowledge, even when you're not there, you are still there in the remembrance of the people. وَتَذْكُرُ, then he says to him, وَتَذْكُرُ قَوْلَتِي لَكَ بَعْدَ حِينٍ إِذَا حَقًّا بِهَا يَوْمًا عَمِلْتَا. He says, you will remember what I'm telling you now one day. You will remember what I'm telling you now one day. If indeed you take up this advice, if you take up this advice I'm giving you, then one day you will remember what I told you here. Because then if he takes up upon this advice, he will see all of these fruits that Abu Ishaq al-Albiri is mentioning. He will see all of these fruits coming, all of these fruits and the virtues of Allah for the knowledge he gains. He will see that and recognize that. He says, so if you follow what I'm telling you, one day you will remember what I told you here. You will remember what I said to you one day if you follow the path that I'm advising you with. Because then by that knowledge Allah raises a person. You will be upon taqwa and you'll see the taqwa you're upon, and then you'll remember what I said to you. You'll see the knowledge you've gained and the practice and how it's improved your religion and your etiquette and your behavior, and you'll remember what I said to you. So he says, وَتَذْكُرُ قَوْلَتِي لَكَ بَعْدَ حِينٍ إِذَا حَقًّا بِهَا يَوْمًا عَمِلْتَ. You will remember what I said to you at some point, if indeed you act upon this advice. وَنَبَذْتَ نُصْحًا وَمِلْتَ إِلَى حُطَامِ قَدْ جَمَعْتَ فَسَوْفَ تَعَضُّ مِن نَدَمٍ عَلَيْهَا وَمَا تُغْنِي النَّدَامَةُ إِن نَدِمْتَ. He says, but if you don't do what I'm telling you, and you cling on to the affairs of the world and the reins of the world, and you carry on upon that way, then one day you will certainly be faced with regret. A great deal of regret will be upon you one day if you continue upon your path and do not go upon the path of knowledge. إِذَا أَبْصَرْتَ صَحْبَكَ فِي سَمَاءٍ قَدْ ارْتَفَعُوا عَلَيْكَ وَقَدْ سَفُلْتَ فراجعها ودع عنك الهوينا فما بالبطء تدرك ما طلبتها. And then he says to him, if you see your colleagues up in the heavens, up in the sky, and you see yourself down in the ground, meaning you see your colleagues gaining the knowledge and becoming higher and higher in that knowledge, memorizing and becoming higher and higher in that memorizing, learning the books one after the next and becoming higher and higher up the ladder. You see your colleagues, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ صَحْبَكَ فِي سَمَاءٍ. He says, when you see your colleagues going up into the sky, but you see yourself down in the ground. Then he says, when you see that situation, then ponder. Stop what you're doing in this laziness and negligence and grab a hold of the hard work and the effort needed. When you see your colleagues rising up, they are memorizing, books after books. They are going through and reading and getting the explanations of books after books. They are memorizing the Quran section after section, memorizing hadith after hadith, and they are going higher and higher and higher, and you're still stuck at the bottom. He says, when you see that situation, contemplate upon yourself and get a move on with this knowledge. Don't allow yourself to be down in the dumps and you see everybody gaining the knowledge and raising above you. And these are all very important affairs to think about. It's very important for a person to recognize how to use his time and not to allow his time to become wasted. And so then he says, just to end on this now, ولا تختل بمالك وله عنه فليس المال إلا ما علمت. And don't hold on and be attached to your wealth, because the reality of wealth is only the knowledge that you actually gain. That is actually the reality of wealth. And in the previous line where he had mentioned فَمَا بِالْبُطْءِ تُدْرِكُ مَا طَلَبْتَ, you will not achieve what you seek with laziness. Being slow, being lazy, you will not achieve what you desire. So that is actually only the opening section of this poem, maybe the first quarter of the poem. And it goes on another 100 verses. But you can see from the very beginning, he's giving the advice regarding time. Death is coming after every individual. The more time that goes by, the older and older you get, the weaker you get in your ability and energy and physical activity. So utilize the time now and do not allow this world to distract you. The trials and tribulations of the world, they don't end. They will continue. A trial and tribulation now, another one next year, they continue. If you make your focus on the worldly affairs, it'll never end until you die. The worldly affairs, they continue to revolve around and continue to go and continue to move. Today, now it's COVID, and tomorrow it'll be something else. If you allow all of your focus to go on that, day after day, all you talk about is COVID. Day after day, all you're talking about is research and this and that, and you need to look at this doctor and that doctor. Every day you're going to spend 2 hours reading all of that. In 2 hours you could memorize how much of the Quran every day? Not even half of the Quran, or even half, or even a quarter, or even a fifth, or a sixth. But you got 2 hours and 3 hours and 10 or 15 hours a week to read about all of COVID. It's better for you to spend your time on this. As for that, that is the secondary affair. Keep up to date with what is going on with the worldly affairs and all these things, of course. Keep up to date so you know what's happening. But that's all you need to do. Keep up to date, know what's going on, be aware of what's happening, and that's it. The rest of the time, don't sit there reading 100-page documents from a doctor in Germany, another YouTube video 2 hours long from a doctor in America, and they're telling you this and they're telling you that. Nobody has told you to do a degree in COVID now. Don't waste your time on that. If you do that, already it's been 6 months. And it's going to carry on another 6 months at least, probably. They're going to carry on talking about it all winter. Now the tier 3 is coming in Sheffield as well. It's going to carry on all of these things. They're going to carry on winter, maybe after winter, spring, summer. Who knows how long they're going to carry on talking about this. If you start focusing on that as your primary thing, another 6 months is going to go by, you've done nothing. Next winter will come and they start talking about it again. Winter's here, COVID's coming back again next year. Another 6 months disappears from your time. These worldly matters never disappear. They will always be there. Be aware of what's going on, but do not focus your time on that every day. Every day talking about that, every day this and that and this. There is no need for that. You spend all of that time into knowledge and you will be far better off. Far better off using that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours where you're going to read some document about COVID. It's better for you to memorize a matan. 10 ayat of that matan you can memorize. 20 ayat of that Quran you could memorize. You could gain so much when you have a scheduled lesson pattern of learning organized. This is what the Talib al-Ilm needs to do. Imagine now, imagine the Tullab al-Ilm who are there sitting with the scholars. The Tullab al-Ilm who are there with the scholars in the various lands. They are doing their degrees, they are doing their masters, they are doing their PhDs. I challenge you. Do you think any of them sit there for hours a week reading in the research papers and YouTube videos? And do you think they do that? Do you think any of the scholars advise their students to do that? Do you think they've got time to do that? Not at all. So make sure the point of this is that you have your priorities right. Your priorities need to be right. Your priority is not to spend 8 or 10 or 5 hours a week reading into worldly matters. Spend that time in your religious affairs of learning and improve and continue to memorize and learn. This is what will benefit a person in the long run. Otherwise, 6 months have already gone on COVID, another 6 months are coming now, 12 months, and what has a person done? He's become an expert on all these other worldly matters and he's done nothing in his religious affairs, or very little in his religious affairs. He's become expert on the worldly matters, 80% of his time gone there, only 20% on the Quran and memorizing mutun. That's a mistake. That is falling into exactly what he said here, that you're being distracted by affairs that are not your priority. So focus on the priority, and as for the secondary, then that's on the side. Keep aware of what's going on, know what the rules are, what needs to be done, what's going on. That's okay. No problem with that. That's there. Keep on top of those things, but this is the priority. And this knowledge is the focus. So, we're going to just round off on that for tonight then. That is the opening section of the poem. There is a full explanation we've done once on this whole poem. It's available in maybe 10 or 12 recordings, I think, for the whole poem. That's available online, but this is just a summary of the opening section we've done tonight as an encouragement upon seeking knowledge and the etiquettes of the Talib al-Ilm, how to use his time and what to do with his time. So we'll round off on that for tonight then. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Any questions or anything? Salam. When a person falls into behavior that is unbefitting, then the way to rectify that is to learn the behavior of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كان خلقه القرآن. His mannerisms were that of the Quran. And in the hadith, أثقل شيء في الميزان الخلق الحسن. The heaviest thing in the weighing scale will be the good manners. So the more a person learns, the better his etiquette becomes, the more he learns what the character of the Prophet ﷺ was, what the character of a student of knowledge should be. That all comes the more you learn. The more you attend the gatherings of knowledge, the more you read into the books of the scholars, the more you read about the Prophet ﷺ, the biographies of the Salaf. So over time, you learn more and more of the etiquettes of a student of knowledge, and you improve in that way as time goes by.
Can I ask a question? You know, a part of Ayatul Kursi is, I think it's وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. So, does that mean that, what does that mean, first of all? Can you just quickly say, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ? What does that mean?
That they do not encompass anything of his knowledge except that which he wills.
So, basically, is there also a aspect of knowledge which a person, no matter how much struggle he goes through,
cannot encompass? Absolutely.
Okay.
Allah said in the Quran, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You have not been given from knowledge except a small amount. So there are some things where Allah has told us some knowledge about those things, but only a little amount, not the full detail. Like for example now, the affairs of the unseen. About the Day of Judgment now, there are ahadith. There are lots of hadith telling us what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment and everything. But still, can we imagine exactly how it's going to be? In paradise, there are things Allah has told us about in paradise, about the fruits that are going to be in paradise, about the gardens and the rivers. But can we imagine it and what the fruits are going to be like and what it's... We can't. So we don't have the complete knowledge of everything yet. Even some of the names and attributes of Allah, we don't know all of them yet. So there is only a limit to certain levels of knowledge and we don't have the rest of it yet. That's true.
Furthermore, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was ummi, so he was unlettered himself. He couldn't read or write, and so was a lot of the Sahaba. So they would learn the knowledge through each other rather than like today we're blessed with books and books of knowledge. So what would you say is like? Would you say that other, like like to get a class proper knowledge which will benefit you at the time when you need it? Yeah, because you can have knowledge and then, like you said, at the time you need it, you can go astray. And what benefit is that? So basically, to get knowledge, what benefit you at the time you need it is it qurbani, that is the key. So a sacrifice for one's health, for one's time, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who will do. It's not us seeking knowledge or how much knowledge we've got or how much we pray or anything. It's how much qurbani we give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that
how much sacrifice we give?
Yeah, and that will with the class, that will bring that knowledge to us at the specific time. So basically, knowledge in itself is not is that correct?
I think I understand the point you're making, that knowledge, that whatever knowledge we have been given, it is by the tawfiq of Allah. All of this knowledge that you gain and the knowledge you've been given, it is by the tawfiq that Allah gives you. Allah gives different people different levels of understanding, different levels of ability. Nobody can ever say because they are smart and they are clever, they've been able to gain loads of knowledge. Rather, that is a blessing Allah gave you. Everything we have and the knowledge we have and the guidance we have, it is a blessing from Allah upon us. So even that, of course, just like in Al-Fatiha, in every prayer, you always ask Allah, make the dua, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. So there is nothing you do independently and you gain because of your smartness. Rather, you make dua to Allah that He gives you this knowledge and gives you understanding. All of it is by the tawfiq of Allah.
So, every now and again when a terrorist attack takes place somewhere in the world and the media and people on social media start attacking Islam and the Muslims saying that they are barbaric, etc., some of the Muslim youth or the people who may lack some knowledge regarding their religion may actually start to doubt these affairs of the deen and actually start to believe the things that they read and hear. So could you shed some light that, if, for example, Islam might be barbaric or the things that those people in the media accuse Muslims of being?
But these actions which occur, they are not representative of Islam in the first place. Where in Islam have you been given permission to do some of the acts that the Khawarij do? Where in Islam does it give you permission to go and kill somebody just like that? Where in Islam does it give you permission to go blow up a bus or go blow up a building or go put a bomb somewhere else? Where in Islam does it give you permission to do these things? What the Khawarij do is not a representation of Islam in the first place. What the Khawarij do is corruption. It is corruption. And some of the things that they've done, which have been reported from ISIS and these other types of groups of the Khawarij, then they are barbaric, because those acts are not representations of Islam in the first place. Their acts and their actions that they do, the Khawarij, they are not what the Prophet ﷺ taught us to do. So if anybody is saying that those kinds of acts are wrong and they are barbaric and they are this and they are that, those acts are wrong. If somebody is killing innocent people or bombing or doing the types of things that the Khawarij do, those actions are corrupt actions that are not from the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. Islam, the truth of Islam, and that Islam does not propagate what they do, what some of them do. Rather, Islam propagates justice and peace and goodness. These are the qualities and virtues of Islam. So a person should not be misguided by the actions of the Khawarij and the types of activities that they engage in and what they promote. They are a misguided sect from centuries old. The Khawarij and all of the offshoots of the Khawarij.
About the janazah, about the awam. In different masajid of Ahl Sunnah, the Sunnis, are we allowed to pray behind the janazah? That's the first one. And the second, if you follow the janazah, is it okay, يعني, after we bury, do we have to wash the clothes and wash ourselves, or is it just for the people, they wash the man who died?
in another masjid, they are upon sunnah, then of course you can pray the janazah behind somebody. If it was your relative or someone, you can go pray the janazah there. If it is another mosque and they're upon, they're not upon bid'ah, extreme bid'ah, they're not upon some type of deviation where they call upon the messenger or call upon Ali, they're not upon extreme bid'ah of that nature, just some other type of mosque, whatever they might be, but they're not upon extreme bid'ah like that, then you can pray the janazah behind those types of people, generally speaking. The washing afterwards, the one who washes the body of the deceased, there is a hadith that speaks about it, that the person who washes the deceased should then make a ghusl, etc., or wudu. But the scholars have said it is only mustahab. It is not an obligation.
Ustaz, when people on janazah, is it allowed to do dua jama'at, or do you have to do dua by yourself?
You do it by yourself. When you go to the janazah, you do the burial. The dua is not done in congregation, it is done by yourself.
I was going to say, when you mentioned that people are raised in the eyes of the people, and also through their knowledge, and they're also put down when they don't act upon it, what would you say the people mentioned is Ahlul Sunnah? Because like people like Yasir Qadhi, for example, a lot of people raise him, put him on a pedestal, even though his knowledge isn't something that he's acting upon, or he doesn't have correct knowledge. So would the people be Ahlul Sunnah?
That's a reasonable point to make. Here in the poem, he was speaking generally. He was speaking generally. Any person who behaves in bad etiquette, then the people around him are going to look at him in a bad way. Anybody, that's anybody in any situation. That's human nature. Somebody who does something wrong or bad and their behavior is shameful, then people around him are not going to look at him in a very praiseworthy way. But that point regarding raising people and lowering people, the people of innovation are not raised. Even if they have followers, that does not mean they are raised. These people are lowered by their false beliefs that they are upon. They are lowered by their opposition to the Quran and the Sunnah. So having followers isn't a sign of somebody being raised. The hadith it mentions about the prophets, when the Prophet ﷺ said, وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا الرَّهْطِ, I saw a messenger and he never had with him except a handful of people, between 3 and 9. That's all the followers he had after all of the da'wah he gave. And then he says, وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا الرَّجُلُ وَالرَّجُلَانِ, I saw another prophet he didn't have except 1 or 2 followers only. All of the da'wah he did, that particular prophet, only 1 or 2 followers. And then he says, وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ أَحَدٌ, I saw a prophet, he didn't have a single follower. A prophet who had not even a single follower. All of the da'wah he did, nobody accepted. So does that mean he was lowered and everybody else was raised? Of course not. It is not about numbers. Numbers does not dictate the truth. Numbers does not dictate who is raised and who is lowered. The practicing of the Quran and the Sunnah raises a person. That is the knowledge we're talking about. As for this, the people of innovation, they come along, they have 1 million followers, they have all these big events and whatever else. That is not raising of a person in the eyes of Allah or in the eyes of Ahlul Sunnah. That is not the raising of a person. If you're not following the Quran and the Sunnah, then what raise have you got? You are lowered. So that is a fair point, that person is lowered in the eyes of Ahlul Sunnah, lowered in the eyes of Ahlul Sunnah because he is not practicing the Quran and the Sunnah. So do not believe and do not think that just because they have numbers, that is some type of evidence of their superiority. This is a divorce question, we'll do this elsewhere. Anything else?
Last question.
You had something else, somebody else after that last one, go on.
So regarding the 2 scholars that you mentioned who debated at night and day, one of them at daytime used to use books. So was he considered a scholar?
No, I mean this is just an example they give regarding memorizing knowledge. There used to be these 2 individuals, one of them used to win at daytime because he had access to his books. The other one won at night because he had memorized everything. The other one couldn't read anything at night. It's not about them being scholars, it's just about the point that one of them memorized his knowledge. That's the key. We're going to have to stop there. Time has gone on. We'll resume or until the next time, whenever the next time is, inshallah ta'ala. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.